The corridors of Helion Academy hummed with order, smooth, white, seamless. Every step sounded identical, every breath measured. Discipline wasn't taught here. It was built into the walls. Evelyn Drake walked through that perfection, feeling the world recoil from her. Her boots echoed too loud. Her heartbeat was unregulated, unrefined, human. Around her, alien cadets glided in silence, tall forms of violet and gold, skin metallic under the sterile lights. None of them looked at her directly. They didn't have to. She felt their judgment in the way they curved their paths just slightly to avoid her. A Deathworlder didn't belong here. Inside Xeno Diplomacy 402, Commander Vrackel's voice filled the hall. It was calm, mechanical, precise. Emotion, he lectured, is the evolutionary residue of lower species. Harmony begins when the mind silences instinct. Evelyn sat alone at the back. Her stylus tapped against the desk, once, twice, until she realized the sound drew eyes. She stopped. The holographic display in front of her listed equations of peace, patterns of negotiation stripped of feeling. Logic without breath. A tall alien student, Xirinth, turned and smirked. His silver-scaled face caught the light like polished steel. "Do humans even understand logic?" he asked softly. "Or is violence your only vocabulary?" Vrackel didn't stop him. He didn't need to. The silence that followed was permission. Evelyn looked at Xirinth, unblinking. "Logic without compassion," she said quietly, "is just cruelty with better grammar." A few students tilted their heads, confused or curious, but no one replied. Vrackel's tone cut through the tension. "Miss Drake, please remember, you are here to learn, not to provoke." She nodded once, suppressing the answer that rose to her tongue. Her pulse stayed calm. That was her strength. She never gave them what they expected. When class ended, she moved through the atrium where banners of every peaceful world hung in suspended air. The flag of Earth wasn't among them. It had been removed long ago, after the Deathworld incidents. Her reflection in the polished floor looked like an intruder in someone else's utopia. Thomas Hale waved from a corner table, the only other human allowed on campus. Blonde, quiet, always trying too hard to seem harmless. She joined him with a forced smile. "They're getting bolder," she said. He shrugged. "They're scared. Of what?" "Of the possibility we're right about them." Before she could respond, a crash came from behind the nutrition dispensers. 3 alien seniors surrounded a spilled tray, laughter like static in the air. One of them, a broad-shouldered Tyrene, shoved Tomas backward. "Careful, Deathworlder," the alien hissed. "Gravity on your world must have crushed your manners." Evelyn stepped between them. Her voice was low, calm. "Pick up the tray," the Tyrene blinked. "Or what?" She didn't answer. Her eyes locked on his hands, claws flexing, trembling slightly from arrogance, not fear. When he reached for her shoulder, she moved faster than thought. A twist, a step, an open palm to his chest. He stumbled back 3 meters, slammed into a table, breath gone. The room froze. Every motion, every sound stopped. Then alarms flared red. Hours later, the air in Commander Vrackel's chamber felt colder than the corridors. He stood before her, scales gleaming under sterile lights. "You've proven our theory," he said. She kept her hands behind her back, posture straight. "I stopped an assault. You responded with aggression. I responded with proportion." Vrackel's eyes narrowed, vertical pupils unblinking. "Do you believe your violence serves logic?" "I believe your logic excuses violence when it's convenient," she said. For a long moment, only the hum of the air system spoke. Then he turned to the panel on his desk. A holographic document appeared, glowing red at the edges. "Effective immediately, Evelyn Drake is expelled from Helion Academy. You will depart before next cycle." She stared at the notice. "On whose order?" "Mine," he said. "And the council's." Her jaw tightened. "Because I defended one of my own?" "Because you reminded this academy why Deathworlders cannot evolve." She didn't argue. She understood him now, the same way she'd understood predators back home. He feared what he couldn't control. Vrackel deactivated the screen. "The experiment is over." When she stepped out into the corridor, the lights dimmed for evening cycle. Students whispered as she passed, some in pity, most in relief. She reached her quarters, stripped off the Black Academy insignia from her uniform and placed it on the table. The metal burned cold against her skin. For a moment, she let herself breathe. The air tasted recycled, artificial, as if even oxygen here had been sterilized. She wanted to scream, to strike, to feel, but she didn't. That was what they expected. The console on her wrist vibrated once, a pulse so faint she almost missed it. She looked down. The screen flickered, then a message appeared. "Don't leave yet." "They're lying." "Unknown source." Her heart jumped once, sharp and clean. She scanned the signal, untraceable, encrypted with human military patterning. No alien could have forged it. She looked out the viewport. Below, the gas giant churned in silent fury, oceans of fire and lightning devouring themselves in endless storms. It looked like home in a strange way, violent, alive, honest. She whispered to the storm, "If they want proof of what a Deathworlder is—" She paused, eyes reflecting the electric light of the planet below. "They'll get it." The next morning, as the transport ships aligned for departure, Evelyn walked through the loading bay with her duffel over one shoulder. The air was filled with the antiseptic hum of departure orders. Vrackle stood by the viewport, speaking to a cluster of council envoys. His voice carried across the bay. "Humans cannot coexist. Their biology is incompatible with peace." Evelyn stopped. For a heartbeat, every suppressed instinct clawed to the surface. But she said nothing. When she reached the ramp, a small metallic disc rolled against her boot, a data key, tagged with human markings. She bent, pocketed it without looking around. No one noticed. She boarded the shuttle, eyes fixed on the storm outside. Behind her, the academy glowed under artificial daylight, pristine, calm, unburned. For now, she thought of Thomas, of the unknown message, of the lie buried beneath their peace. The engines roared. The ship trembled. Lightning flashed below, reflected across her eyes. She closed her hand over the data key. Her voice was barely a whisper, meant only for herself. "Let's see what truth you're hiding, Commander." Outside the viewport, Valora 9's red clouds swirled like living fire. And somewhere deep inside her, far below the surface of control, something began to burn. The transport shuttle hadn't cleared Helion's orbit when Evelyn slipped the data key from her pocket. The metallic disc was small, unmarked, almost weightless, but it felt like a heartbeat in her palm. She turned it over, tracing the etching along its edge. Property of Helion Internal Security. Whoever had given it to her wanted her to see something the Academy didn't. She glanced at the other passengers. No one looked her way. Rows of alien cadets sat in silent stillness, their gaze fixed forward, unblinking. Even here, order followed her. Evelyn activated her wrist console, masking the data signal behind her neural ID. The file unfolded in streams of coded text, encryption folding back like a curtain. Inside the data core were reports, hundreds of them, all labeled Experiment 09 Hum. Her name. Thomas's name. Dates, tests, psych evaluations, behavior triggers, each one signed by Commander Vrackle. Then the last file opened. It was a video. On screen, Evelyn stood frozen in the cafeteria, the Tyrene lunging toward her. But the audio told a different story. Vrackle's voiceover echoed, "Observe, Deathworld subject responds to minimal provocation with violence. Instinctual aggression confirmed. Project termination justified." The footage had been edited, cropped to erase the shove, the insults, everything before her defense. It wasn't an evaluation. It was a setup. Her jaw clenched as the shuttle descended toward the orbital port. The lie burned deeper than anger. It was betrayal dressed as science. She shut down the console and whispered, "You wanted proof, Vrackle. You're going to get it." She slipped away during disembarkation, blending into the cargo movement below the main docks. The moment her boots touched the metallic walkway, she activated the human distress code embedded in her wrist chip. One not even Helion scanners could detect. A secure signal pulsed through the dark, Deathworld network initiated. Within minutes, a voice crackled through her comm, low, familiar, distinctly human. Helion cadet signal confirmed. Identify. Evelyn Drake, expelled. We know. They sent the report already. What did you find? Proof. They falsified data to erase us. Upload. She transmitted the files. The voice paused, processing. Stay off the grid. Thomas Hale's been detained. They're calling him an accomplice. Where? Detention Wing, Sector 9. 2 decks below command. The line went dead. Evelyn stood motionless under the artificial stormlight. The choice was simple. Leave, survive, vanish, or return and expose everything. Her father's words echoed from years ago. You don't survive a death world by hiding. She turned back toward the academy. Helion's security perimeter shimmered like glass under rain. Evelyn crouched beside the conduit junction, slicing through the neural lock circuits with a stolen frequency disruptor. The gate flickered once, then dissolved into static. Inside, the academy was quieter than before, as if holding its breath. Night cycle lighting turned the corridors blue, ghostly. She moved through them like a shadow, memorizing every turn, every hum of the sensors. At the detention level, she found the observation chamber. Thomas was strapped to a chair, wrists bound in energy cuffs, eyes unfocused. Commander Vrackle stood across from him, recording his words. You must understand, Vrackle said smoothly, humans cannot function without conflict. Even now you protect a violent anomaly. Thomas's voice was a whisper. You built the conflict. Evelyn bypassed the security panel with her neural code, a trick the aliens didn't know humans could improvise. She slipped into the chamber silently. The lights dimmed as she crossed behind Vrackle. You lied, she said. He turned, startled. Drake? She slammed the override baton into the console, shattering the interface. The cuffs released with a spark. Thomas fell forward, coughing. Evelyn pulled him upright. Can you walk? Barely. Then follow. Vrackle reached for the alarm switch, but she was faster. The baton's edge pressed against his throat. Try it, she warned. I'll show you what your data missed. For a second, the commander's calm cracked. His eyes shifted, reptilian and cold. You think this changes anything? It already has. They ran. Alarm screamed as the system rebooted. The corridor lights turned crimson, sensors locking onto their movements. Thomas leaned against her, half running, half dragged. Where? He gasped. Reactor level. If I can cut power to the main archive, every record of their false reports goes dark. And if it overloads? She gave a faint smile. Then Helion learns what human chaos feels like. They reached the reactor hub. The chamber was vast, a cathedral of energy, blue plasma roaring through conduits. Evelyn accessed the control pillar, hands moving fast. The system fought back, AI locks clamping around her intrusion, but she pushed harder, using raw logic and instinct combined, the one thing Helion never understood. Thomas watched her work, his face pale. You know they'll brand this as terrorism. They already have, she said. Might as well make it true. The core lights flickered. The floor trembled. Warnings flashed in alien script across the walls. Evelyn pulled the last encryption key from her wristband and slammed it into the drive. Authorization, Drake, Evelyn. Command override. Open Truth Archive. The screen filled with recordings, not just hers, but years of hidden data. Experiments, human behavioral manipulation, psychological conditioning. The Academy's perfection built on lies. Then Vrackle's voice echoed through the intercom. You think you're a hero, but you're only proving me right. No, she said quietly. I'm proving why you're afraid. Security drones descended through the upper hatch. Metal wings unfurled, weapons charged. Thomas grabbed a fallen guard's blaster, firing upward. Sparks rained across the platform. Evelyn ripped the final cable free. Alarms shrieked as the energy grid destabilized. Done! She shouted. Move! They sprinted down the corridor as the reactor surged behind them, white-blue plasma consuming the conduits. The floor shook like thunder. The Academy, that monument of control, began to bleed light through its perfect seams. In the hangar, the emergency lock sealed halfway. Evelyn dove under as flames roared behind them. She looked back once, the corridor collapsing in a wave of molten fire. Thomas gripped her shoulder. We can still escape. Not yet. I need to send the files. She connected her wrist console to the comm beacon. The Deathworld network reactivated instantly. Dozens of encrypted lines opened across systems: Mars, Europa, Titan, the outer colonies. Her voice was steady. To all Deathworld-born, this is Evelyn Drake. Helion Academy's peace is a lie. We were their experiment, their proof of fear. No more. She sent the files. The transmission scattered across light years, unstoppable. The beacon exploded behind her, throwing them forward. Thomas rolled to his feet. You did it. Evelyn looked at the flames crawling up the walls, her expression unreadable. Not yet. This is only the spark. Outside the viewport, the storm of Valora 9 churned, reflecting the fire spreading through the Academy's domes. Sirens howled. Automated voices screamed evacuation orders. Evelyn watched it all from the hangar's shattered edge, hair whipping in the thermal wind. Vrakel's voice echoed through the public channel, strained, almost human in its fury. You've destroyed everything we built. No, she answered softly. I set it free. She turned toward Thomas. Get to the transport. You'll have to fly blind. They'll jam everything soon. What about you? She glanced once at the inferno swallowing the Academy. I still owe someone a goodbye. Before he could argue, she was gone, disappearing into the smoke. The Helion Academy was collapsing. What once stood as the pinnacle of alien order now bled fire into the void. The glass domes that had reflected peace cracked under the strain of chaos. Alarms merged with the sound of splitting steel as gravity fields faltered. Drones screamed overhead, spinning out of control before vanishing into plasma smoke. Through it all, Evelyn Drake moved with deliberate calm. Every breath hurt, every step was weighted by exhaustion, yet her focus never wavered. She had started something she couldn't stop, and didn't want to. The Academy's downfall wasn't vengeance. It was truth burning its way free. Her boots hit the command deck's shattered floor. Smoke coiled through the chamber where once polished silver reflected perfect symmetry. Now firelight replaced fluorescent calm. Commander Vrakel stood before the reactor control console, his uniform torn, scales darkened with soot. He turned slowly, the calm mask gone. You've doomed an entire station, he said, voice low, trembling beneath its composure. No, Evelyn answered. I ended a lie. He studied her, eyes narrow. Do you understand what your defiance means? The Council will brand your species as uncontrollable. Your rebellion will validate every fear we have of humanity. Then maybe you should start questioning why fear was your foundation, she said evenly. The command deck trembled. A panel collapsed behind her, scattering sparks. Vrakel moved toward her, cautious, deliberate, like approaching a predator. You could have been proof that Deathworlders can adapt. You could have become the bridge. She met his stare. Bridges don't survive when one side keeps burning them. He lunged without warning, trying to seize her arm. She twisted aside, driving her elbow into his ribs. He staggered but recovered quickly, striking back with precision. They collided again, grappling between broken consoles. His movements were efficient, trained. Hers were instinctive, raw. He tried to pin her, but she used the debris to her advantage, slamming him into the shattered railing. The impact cracked metal. She pressed her forearm against his throat. You built a peace that needed victims, she said. We built peace that worked. Only because you silenced everyone who disagreed. He tried to shove her away, but the ship's tremor threw him off balance. The reactor warning blared louder, containment reaching critical. Evelyn's eyes caught the control display flashing reactor override. Locked! Open it, she demanded. Vrakel's jaw tightened. You'd destroy us all. I'm not destroying anything. I'm ending control, she shoved him aside and reached the console. Sparks bit at her hands as she rerouted power through the manual conduits. The override sequence appeared on screen, demanding dual authorization. She typed her code. The second input remained blank. Vrakel watched her in disbelief. You don't have clearance for that. She looked back at him, voice steady. Then help me finish it. Or we both die here pretending you still have control. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, his clawed hand reached toward the console. Their reflections flickered across the molten surface, predator and prey, but it was no longer clear which was which. He entered his command key. The screen turned red. Reactor override released. Containment sequence disabled energy surged through the chamber like thunder. Light flooded every corner, searing white and gold. Vrackle stumbled backward, shielding his eyes. "You're insane!" Evelyn faced him, unflinching. "No. I'm human." The explosion ripped through the lower decks first, climbing upward in a blooming storm. Pressure doors buckled. The gas giant's reflection lit up in the viewport, a mirror of the chaos inside. Thomas Hale's shuttle detached from the docking ring as the blast wave reached it. The hull vibrated, warning lights screaming across the control panel. He gripped the manual thrusters, guiding the craft clear of debris. Through the viewport, the Helion Academy burned like a dying star. He watched in silence, jaw clenched, heart pounding. Every instinct told him to go back, but the fire consuming the station said otherwise. Still, he couldn't leave her. "Evelyn," he whispered. The transmission beacon blinked alive, weak, distorted. Her voice came through, fractured by static but unmistakable. "If you're hearing this, I finished it." He froze. "They'll call it destruction, but it's only revelation. The files are out. The galaxy will see what they built, what they did to us. Tell them." Emotion isn't weakness. It's proof we're still alive. The signal cut. Thomas stared at the comm for a long moment, then turned toward the fleet of evacuation vessels drifting nearby. Alien ships hovered uncertainly, their formations broken, no one issuing orders. He opened a broadcast channel. "This is Thomas Hale, former cadet of Helion Academy. You've seen the flames. What you're watching isn't terrorism. It's truth. The Academy manipulated species under the guise of harmony. They suppressed what makes us sentient." Silence filled the channel. Then another voice broke through. Alien, hesitant. "We received the data. The Council lied." One by one, more voices followed. Different accents, different worlds. "She showed us. The Deathworld girl. She freed us from silence." Thomas exhaled, eyes wet but steady. "Remember her name. Don't let them erase her again." Inside the wrecked command deck, flames crawled across the ceiling like veins of molten glass. Evelyn stood near the viewport, her skin marked by ash, her hair flickering in the red light. The Academy groaned around her, dying. Vrackle lay against the console, wounded but breathing. His gaze shifted toward her, anger fading into something else. "Why didn't you leave?" "Because you needed to see what peace without feeling looks like," she said softly. He looked at the burning horizon through the viewport. "You'll be remembered as a monster." "Maybe, but monsters make the galaxy pay attention." She turned toward the communication terminal and opened the final transmission. Line, broadcasting to every frequency the Academy once used for propaganda. Her voice carried through the static, calm and clear. "This is Evelyn Drake, daughter of Earth. The Helion Academy has fallen, not by hatred but by truth. You cannot sterilize existence. You cannot outlaw emotion and still call yourselves alive. The age of engineered peace is over. From this fire we begin again." She ended the transmission and looked down at her wrist console. Its power was fading, flickering with the last remnants of signal. The floor split beneath her. Wind roared through the collapsing structure, sucking the air outward. She reached for the railing but missed. For a heartbeat she hung weightless, surrounded by the glow of everything she'd broken. Then a magnetic tether locked around her wrist. Thomas's voice came through the comm. "Got you." He pulled her into the shuttle as the last explosion consumed the Academy. They slammed the hatch shut, the ship spinning violently as shock waves chased them into open space. The engines roared to life, throwing them clear of the fire. Evelyn lay on the deck, coughing, lungs burning. Thomas dropped beside her, face streaked with soot. "You're alive," he said, half in disbelief. "Mostly." She looked out the viewport at the inferno. "Helion's gone." He nodded. "But the message isn't." The comm blinked with hundreds of incoming signals. The galaxy was awake. Evelyn sat upright, staring into the swirling gas storms of Valora 9 below. "They'll come for us." "Let them," Thomas said. "Now they know what a Deathworlder really is." She gave a faint smile, one that held no triumph, only resolve. "Good," she whispered. "Let them remember." Epilogue. Days later, news broadcasts echoed across systems. The footage of Helion's fall spread faster than censorship could contain. The council denied, deflected, then fractured under its own contradictions. Across colonies, humans once hidden stepped into the light. In every corner of the galaxy, one phrase became a symbol of defiance. The Deathworld girl was expelled. And then the fires began. And somewhere beyond communication range, aboard a nameless vessel, Evelyn Drake watched the stars through the viewport, calm, quiet, and utterly human.